Welcome everyone to The Rift. I am your co-host, Jeremy Culver, aka Darsay.
And I'm Kyle Gloria.
Kyle, we are entering week 4 of the LCS splits, about halfway through, a little bit under for both sides, but we are getting there. And starting to see the teams taking off on either side. Kyle, this is getting to the interesting time, but as always, starting off this show, how are you doing this week?
I am not too bad, man. Just enjoying another week of the LCS, as always. Overall, though, it's just, we're kind of hitting that mid-season stride, so it's kind of like every other week you're just kind of seeing what turns up each week and what surprises are going to hit, what stories are we going to see continue to be what we thought they were, what stories are going to be different than what we thought. It's always an interesting thing to see what's actually true and what's not.
Yeah, and we're getting to that point, as you kind of alluded to, where we do see the teams that are going to be solid stay solid, and we start to see the teams that are not doing so hot either turn things around or continue to not do hot. And that's where we're going to start today's episode. So give me, Kyle, your big take. Where are you starting off at?
I am going to start over in EU, and my big take is actually going to be EU as a whole. I must say, at the beginning, we were talking about how there's the dominant team, maybe the 2 or 3, then there's the kind of and then it's just a huge drop-off. But EU is really showing up this last couple weeks and really have proven that no team is safe from losing a series, because man, it is really close over there right now. Teams are beating teams they shouldn't be beating, or what we think they shouldn't be beating, but they are. And right now it's just kind of a lot closer than expected, which makes it extremely exciting, like an A should be, is. And it allows me to actually be like looking forward to these matches, like a Rocat G2. Like I'm not looking forward to that, or Fnatic Rocat. It's like what that is or should be, in your mind, but it's not. So it makes you watch it because you're like, holy crap, this is exciting. It allows me to find matches like that more appealing, and it's gonna allow like this coming weekend for those matches to be more appealing, because I'm not gonna take any of those teams for granted. I'm like, holy crap, this can be a toss up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the big thing when it comes to EU right now, the only consistent thing, which has been a discussion we've had on past episodes and will probably be a discussion on a future episode, is you can't count on those challenger teams right now. But anyways, yeah, no, granted, we'll get into our pick'ems a little bit later, but obviously I was guaranteed Unicorns of Love taking out Splice, and in game 1 it was that dominant factor, but then Splice ended up winning it, which was surprising. And then Rocat, we gave no chance to. They take out Fnatic. G2 early in the season, I even picked Misfits to lose against Ninjas in Pajamas. They barely won that one, and then they come out and do very good and pretty much dominate G2. Yeah, over in EU right now, things are really close, and that's where I'm going to start my pickup, or my big take, excuse me. And it's kind of going off of what you said, but I guess the big thing is I think Splice's return to form. As I had said in last week's episode, Trashy in his post-game interview had said that they kind of had that feeling of they lost the way they wanted to play a little bit last split, and a lot of it was just having to find the confidence in themselves again and just figure things out. It really wasn't a whole lot of changes in the meta that really impacted them. It was just the fact that they lost the form that they wanted to play, and they knew overall they weren't that good of a team, so they needed to just continue to work together, and they could be that good of a team again. And them beating Unicorns of Love, even though they only had the one game last week, very surprising to me. And to me, that puts them at the upper echelon of EU teams at the moment. As me and you were talking about, they were definitely going to be a wild, or a playoff team, and going to be competing for the upper spots, possibly a world spot. But that win, in my opinion, especially with how Unicorns of Love played leading into that series makes me think Splice has finally figured it out and could be on the rise again for that potential playoff spot, or excuse me, the world spot. But bigger thing from it is they did not lose a step by losing Yamato Cannon, which was something I was worried about heading into the season.
No, I completely agree, man. It's exciting seeing that. I mean, you look over there in Group B, H2K, Splice, and Unicorns of Love all are 3-1 right now. That is fantastic for Europe. And then you got Team Vitality, which we all know what they kind of are, I guess, on the, you know, the whole like more consistent badness other than the challenger teams. Vitality's been there. But then you look over at the other side, you have Misfits, which, really quick, shout out to Maxlor. He's really, like, they're showing why they wanted him, because apparently Maxlor and Alfari are really good friends, and they sync really well together, and they've played together for a really long time, I guess. And, man, Maxlor, we knew he was good, but it was very questionable with the whole Cacao thing situation. But, you know, you're seeing it start to play it, you know, into what they're trying to do. Fnatic, of course, is 3-1, and then G2 is 2-2, which you can never count G2 out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still gonna be, should be that top, eventually fighting for that top spot. But overall, and then you got Rocat 2-2. I can't even forget about Rocat. I mean, going in there beating the two top teams in their group, you know, that's huge. And now we're going to be going into the groups, switching, you know, vice versa. You're going to go ahead and go play the other group, so you're going to want to take advantage of fighting, you know, Vitality or Mysterious Monkeys. But it's going to be really interesting seeing Group A go into Group B with those three teams looking really well right now.
Yeah, and we are getting to that point of the cross group games. So it's going to be very interesting, as you said, is where do the teams stack up when they start playing against the opposite side of the groups? Kyle, give me your big take from the NA side.
NA, my big take, I mean, I've got to give it to the consistency out of CLG and Dig right now. Someday is proving why he is what he is. I mean, we all knew, but man, is he playing really well right now. And CLG's just playing really consistent. And I mean, they're showing, hey, listen, it's summer. We're gonna be CLG. We always try to claim a spot in the Worlds. We're gonna get there. I don't care if you don't think we should be or not, but we're gonna get there. And right now, they're really proving it right now.
You're right. Those are strong teams. CLG, as I had said heading into the split, talking when we discussed the Xmithy for Dardoch situation, I said that I thought that the Dardoch going to CLG would be very beneficial, and maybe this team could figure it out. And we do know that when Dardoch is winning, he's an easier teammate to work with than when things are going south, like any team, but mainly him. I do want to say just one team that you did leave out is Immortals. 5-1 as well, doing great. It's nice to see that, especially with Pobelter being in the mid lane. As you know, I am a Pobelter fan. And I do like Cody-san. I really like how he's been playing. And a lot of people have had him as the rookie of the split last split. I know it went to contracts, but there were a lot of casters that had him as rookie of the split, and he's continuing to show his dominance in the form. My big take, however, is the fall from grace with Phoenix right now. Sitting at 0-6 at the bottom of the table. When we walked into this season, there was no way I would tell you that heading into week 4 that Phoenix 1 would not have a win. They'd be sitting at the bottom of the table. And FlyQuest and Team Liquid would be above them, where both of them are already struggling. It's very interesting to see how much this team has fallen. I will say, I hope they continue to stay down since they play Team Liquid this week. But it is sad, especially when being a big fan of Ryu, being a big fan of Inori, being a big fan of Arrow. I just don't know what's going on with this team at the moment, but maybe they'll start to figure it out, and there may still be, when we get to the promotion tournament, they still may be strong enough to stay up versus those challenger teams. We don't know yet. there could be that gap still. But right now, the fall for grace for Phoenix One is pretty shocking.
Oh, big time. Like as you said, don't really know what is causing all this. I mean, their team's pretty solid overall. Still, it's the same. Other than the fact that Adrian is not playing, I mean, I don't know how much that really. I mean, I don't think Adrian single-handedly would make that team turn into an 0-6 team. Like,
Yeah, I don't think so either.
so I don't know what's going on with that situation. It's just bad right now, and it's not really looking too good with what we'll discuss in future episodes, especially closing the season and stuff like that. We're gonna, get more into the franchising when you start hearing stories and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you see a team like Phoenix One. It's one of the teams on the bubbles that you're kind of worried about on if they're going to be able to stay in this or not. And if they continue to do this, it's going to be hard for management to be like, you know, what are you what made you guys lose focus? Like what's going on that's causing this and stuff like that. But overall though, that drop, man, that it's huge going from being the top four to being dead last at 0-6. Not even a single win. Like that's
Mhm.
really really bad.
Yeah, we'll obviously again, as you said, see how things start to shake out as the season rolls on. But right now, this is just a very rough situation for Phoenix One. They do play Echo Fox and Team Liquid, which is what I was about to say this week. Maybe they can get some wins out of those two teams, but as of right now, things are not looking pretty for them. Kyle, let's get into the topic of the show. In this week, we do have a quicker episode just because of how things ended up shaping out. Trying to keep this one short and sweet so that way you guys can get to your games quicker with EU kicking off fairly soon. So, Kyle, the topic of this show, though, is the surprise announcement, or at least it was a surprise announcement to me. I don't know how it felt to you, is that TSM is doing tryouts for their sub ADC, which is not surprising. It's just surprising in Mr. Rales is the
Yes.
one who is doing the tryout. So, Kyle, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Rales. So, I've been a big fan of him for a while because of Super Hot Crew,
Super hot crew.
and I've talked about it numerous times in past episodes that how much I think that he is a good player, especially when some people compared his playmaking ability to that of a former EU LCS ADC of Woolite. Kyle, what do you think about the tryout for Mr. Rales at the sub ADC role in TSM?
It's interesting going into this, but I think they're kind of. I almost feel like the hinting factor of the fact that they're trying to find that possible replacement for if Double Lift decides to really step down, like officially, and just stick with streaming. And I mean, maybe it's one of those situations too. I mean, I don't think they would do that to Double Lift, but maybe when things are continuing to struggle like this, maybe it's going to be one of those situations that you throw. If Mr. Raleigh seems to work pretty well with Battlefrost, and there's a good synergy there, maybe it's one of those situations that you do with Impact and Ray, and just to see if it kind of boosts some stuff. Like maybe you get a little bit of better play from them because they're able to take that little bit of a break. They don't have to sit there and play every single game. Because as we said, TSM, I mean, they're not what we truly expect them to be right now. And I don't know. Maybe, like I said, I think it's a future move. I think it's one of those moves like they're preparing for Double Lift to be gone, and if he decides to leave, and again, maybe it could be sooner than later. Not Double Lift necessarily leaving, but at least subbing in and out.
Yeah, well, this is definitely a future move. Um, you know, it still is surprising for a lot of people that
Hmm.
in LCS, the age of 23 is pretty old.
Yeah.
Double Lift is 23, and he's been around for a long time. Obviously, played on various teams over his career, mainly CLG for, the extent of it. But, he's gotten to the point where he just took a break not too long ago for that exact reason that he didn't think he was going to play anymore. So he took a break and now he's back, and we don't know how much longer he's going to stay back. And that's the same mentality that TSM has, is they don't know how long he's planning to stay back. And with that, you have to get somebody who may stay around for a while. Mr. Ralez is only 20 years old. While Mr. Ralez has been around for quite a while, he too can play for many years down the line, just depending on how things go. And he does have the upper tier playmaking ability of those ADC roles, especially in the people that are free agents right now. So it makes a lot of sense to bring him in and see how things go with Mr. Ralez. I'm most intrigued on this pick on, as you kind of alluded to, if he does work well with Biofrost, do they play him? You know, right now they're sitting 2-2. And while that's not terrible, especially in the early season, that is fairly rough for a, TSM team. While they've had worse starting splits, 4-2, this is still, while it's not terrible, this is definitely not where TSM likes to be, especially when you have Reginald as your owner who expects excellence. And when things aren't going exactly that way, like they're not at the top of the table, he's in their ear talking to them, not calling them out, because I've seen reports obviously numerous times that he is actually one of the best owners to work under. He's really considerate about how things go, but he always is, what's going on? Why are we not at the top of the table? What can we be doing? If they go 1-1 this week and they're 5-3 heading into week 5, and they're continuing to sit around this 4th and 5th place spot, I would not be surprised if there is a chance, if the Mr. Ralez works out, that they don't slide Mr. Ralez in and see what happens.
I completely agree. I'd actually be really intrigued by it because, as you said, Mr. Ralez, we've watched his career since Super Hot Crew, especially being Selfie fans, Mr. Ralez fans. Those two, I continue to watch and see where they ended up. And I would love to see what he would be able to do on a team like TSM with the players that they do. Bjergsen and Mr. Ralez played a long time ago together at one point as well. So it's not like there's not a comfort factor. I must say, though, TSM is turning into a Danish team, but, that's what they're going for. I think it's kind of the applications like, hey, Mr. Ralez, Danish, aren't you? Uh-huh.
Fill
You're
out
in. Let's
Danish.
go.
Well, I just want to point out real quick before you get Santorin played for TSM, and he was Danish as well. So
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's why, dude. That's why. But yeah, I would love to see what he would look like under, with the rest of them as well. It'd be really interesting to see how his playmaking ability, as you stated, would be like on a team like TSM, where he can take more chances and risk, and not be scared to, because of the fact that you still have Bjergsen, Hanser, that can back him up in case something may go wrong. But if it turns out going right, man, he can look really, really good.
I gotta just ask you, so as you kind of pointed out, if he plays on a team like TSM where he does have a lot more chances, we could see a little bit of a different ADC than Mr. Ralez. Because Mr. Ralez has always kind of been known as that guy who farms up, tries not to make the mistake that throws the game for your team. Now, he has had those playmaking plays, essentially, as I alluded to earlier, but here's where the comparisons came with Woolite, whereas when he did those things, sometimes he put his team in a bad position and he lost it. And I think that's where we started to see that transition of him being more of the passive player, where he would be more of that utility ADC versus the guy who was going to single-handedly carry the game for you, as you would see with Double Lift, Wild Turtle, and before him, Chaos. Do you feel, as a player who's been playing this long, obviously has the ability to do the playmaking abilities. Do you feel though it may be too late for that transformation, or do you feel because of the fact that he's had those glimpses before that maybe that has always been his playmaking style and he just needs that team to fit it?
I think it's what the second part you said, finding that team to fit in. Because I mean, I know everybody has their style and everybody develops the way they play. But the thing about a game like League or anything that we do, sport wise, video game wise, there is always room for improvement. And I know people always talk about like ceiling caps, like certain people can hit a ceiling cap and they just can't get past that. But I think people can. It just depends on how hard you work and how motivated you are to do it. And if he's motivated, he can become that top type of ADC that people are looking for, and that would really love to have on their team. But it's just a matter of how much they want it themselves.
I'm glad that you kind of pointed out that fact that it sometimes does take that player to do it. You know, we do see a lot of people who instantly fill a player into a role that they've always kind of played. 9 times out of 10, that is because that was the role they needed to fill on that team. That doesn't necessarily mean that's that player overall. And I do agree with kind of what you said, though, is I think if he gets on this team, we could see that playmaker come out more because of the fact he feels more comfortable that he can do it. Because if he does fail, not to say that he will, but if he does fail in trying to make a play, you do have Bjergsen, you do have Hanser, and you do have Svenskeren, who can all turn team fights around for that team if things start to go south. Like those guys can easily, if they're down, a 4v3 fight and it's just those three, or a 5v4 fight with Biofrost in there, those guys can turn it around just in case. So I think it does allow Mr. Rawless to have that playmaking ability, and I think we will see that come out a little bit more in that favor. So I guess before we wrap up this conversation, the one thing I do want to ask you off of that, let's say they do sub out Doublelift at some point this season, and let's say it's earlier than later. So keep in mind, let's think like in the next week or two. So week 5 or week 6. So there's 4 weeks to finish the season, or 3. What do you think Doublelift's next move is? Do you think he sits back and waits, or do you think he reaches out to TSM and says, let me go to another team? Because I don't want to use this as a comparison, but he did leave TSM last split while he was taking time off to play for Team Liquid. And again, we are talking about we don't know how much more time he is going to invest in playing professionally. So does he kind of take that upon himself in the same way and say, look, I don't know how much longer I have. I know I can still contribute to other teams. Let me go play for another team.
I think he waits it out, personally. Being on TSM, I think he waits it out just because of it being in TSM. Why go to a team that may absolutely need it? Like, the Liquid situation, they used him just to try to get out of regulations. Why stress on something like that when you could be a little bit more comfortable knowing you're going to make the playoffs most likely, and you're probably going to make Worlds? I'd say he'd wait it out, unless another team that was in the top half really wanted him. But overall, though, I think being on TSM, I think he'd just let it ride, wait it out, see how it goes.
I was hoping you would say something different, because I do agree with you. I think he will stick it out with TSM, in the fact of not because he feels TSM is going to make Worlds or anything like that. Like, I don't think that plays a factor into it. The thing that I feel like he does is, what other team do you want to play for? And not trying to discredit the other teams. You've played for CLG, one of the longest reigning teams in NA. You've played for TSM. And even though it was during a bad stretch, you played for Team Liquid. The only other team you would possibly want to go play for, if you were a player of his magnitude, is C9, another team with a high caliber, history behind them. But C9 doesn't need an ADC, and they're not going to reach out to grab an ADC. So what other team are you going to play for? So I think that's why he stays there. And then it does give, let's say Mr. Ralles for some reason doesn't become that playmaking ADC.
Mm-hmm.
It does give you that compare and contrast style of play if it's needed. You might go up against a team where, you know what, we do need that more utility ADC to make sure that he's farming up, getting the towers, and staying alive in fights. Mr. Ralles is your choice. There may come a game where it's like, you know what, this bot lane is very passive. If we can have an aggressive ADC to get that advantage of the bot lane, so then it frees up Svenskeren to snowball top or mid, you put double lift in. So it does give you that factor of different play styles to depending on the matchup you're going up against. And when you get to Worlds, that sometimes is very important. Example, SKT with how they played Easy Hoon and Faker, or Bang and Duke. It plays a big factor in how you play. So I think that he would stick it out in the TSM team if for some reason they decided Mr. Ralles is going to play sometime this split.
I couldn't agree more. Like,
All right, so Kyle, before we get into our pick'ems this week, is there anything else you would like to discuss?
off the top of my head, no, but I do gotta give a shout out to Jensen for being the best mid laner in NA right now. That dude is an absolute monster right now, and he is leading in KDA right now and everything. So
Woo!
I do gotta say Jensen is playing super, extremely well, and I do gotta give a shout out Sneaky, my boy, getting his 1000th kill on his former teammates. You know, that's a huge milestone for the LCS. So
Yes.
getting a big 1000 is really nice, especially it being on your old against your old team. That's pretty interesting.
And I'm gonna start this off with, I don't want you to feel like I'm low blowing your team, but you know I do gotta low blow your team. Despite the fact that Jensen's doing so good. Why the heck is C9 not at the top?
I don't know, man.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, what I said previously, it feels like they just hit, like said before earlier in this show about hitting a ceiling, and they just can't seem to, for some reason, take that next step to just be that dominant team. And I think that's where they're stuck at. I think they'll end up getting towards the playoffs, but it's just they hit that spot without being able to take that next step unless something big changes.
I mean, I can guarantee you they're making playoffs. Yeah. It's just the fact that, you know, early in the season, in my preseason picks, obviously I had Cloud9 at 2 and TSM at 1, and right now, neither one are in those spots.
Both, so it's all right.
Make me feel like I know what I'm talking about. All right, let's talk about our pick'em. So, Kyle, me and you both did not have a good week last week. Going 0-2 in our pick'ems. You know, I felt very confident in my guaranteed pick. That didn't happen. I know you kind of went for the upset pick as your guaranteed pick, so I'll give you a little more credit. But man, Unicorns of Love falling to Splice, that was very surprising. Kyle, we're obviously going to do our pick'ems this week. So Kyle, where are you starting off at for your guaranteed pick?
This was actually really hard to choose from between EU and NA because with all the cross-play going on in EU, a lot of those games can go either way. And I had two matchups in NA I was trying to figure out for the upset, but I am going to go with the P1 game and TL in NA. Or, no, I'm going to go with Europe, sorry, for the guarantee win. I'm going to Europe, and I'm going to go Splice Rocat. So you're going to know what I'm going to go with that.
Okay, Splice over Rocat.
I'm going to go Splice over Rocat for the guarantee win. I think Splice is just looking really well right now, and I think Rocat is a better team than we've given them credit for, especially me. But yeah, I just think that Splice overall, though, I think they're hitting that stride, and they're all playing really well right now. And again, Roquette, I get it, they are, but Roquette though in their victories, you've seen slip ups that I think Spice is going to be able to take advantage of, and that the other teams were not able to, and I think they'll just go. I think now that you've seen Roquette play seen what they were able to do in their wins, I think Spice is going to be able to look at that and be like, okay, here's what we need to do, and I think they'll be able to counter that.
So what do you got the series going? Is it a 2-0? Is it a 2-1?
I think it's gonna be 2-1. I think though
2-1? Okay.
Roquette's good enough though to make it a full series.
All right. So just because of the fact that you went in EU for your guaranteed, I'm going to go in NA for my guaranteed. And I am saying it right now, even though I'm not very confident in it. Team Liquid is going to beat Phoenix 1. That is my guaranteed. I think that's more hopeful, but that's my guaranteed, and I'm gonna go. That's definitely going to 2-1. I will say this, despite the fact that Team Liquid went 0-4 in the actual games last week, I do feel that they still played way better than they did early on. The team does look closer in these games, especially against the higher tier teams, because I'd still put TSM at a higher tier team, and obviously Immortals being at number 1, they're up there. Week 1, Team Liquid was, it was just one of those, and then week 2 Liquid still kind of felt that way, but they, as I had said already, they were closer against that Team Envy, and then they found out a way to beat Team Dignitas. Last week, again, didn't get any wins in the actual series, but I just feel this is a stronger playing team. And when you look at just how Phoenix 1 has played in these games so far, there's just not a lot of optimism for right now. They played better last week, but still not a very much optimism. So I'm going Team Liquid, man. Please, Liquid, make me feel smart. All right. So in your upset pick, Kyle, you obviously are going NA. What is your upset pick?
And because I've constantly gone with the C9 games, I'm going to go away from that Cloud9 dig game, and I'm actually going to choose, because we're different on it, I'm going to choose the same matchup, but I'm going P1 with the upset, the big old upset. I'm sorry, man. I kind of rewatched some of that game, man. There's no consistency in Golden Glue.
So, I mean, I'm supposed to be in your wedding, but I don't think I can do that.
I'm sorry, man. I'm going to P1 for that week.
All right. It's all right.
I think like as you said, P1, even though the losses have been, sweeps, but they've seemed to gradually get a little bit better, but they've got to come out with a win somewhere. And I just think that with the Liquid struggles and the inconsistency with Liquid, if Liquid does better in the first match against who they play first, Cloud9, which that's not going to happen either. But if they show up a little bit though towards Cloud9 and waste all it on the consistency issues, I don't think they'll be able to beat P1.
Yeah, no, you're right though. When it comes to, you would assume Phoenix 1 is going to win at some point. Their higher chances are going to be against FlyQuest or Team Liquid. Now, FlyQuest already beat Phoenix 1.
Exactly.
So Team Liquid is next, and you would assume they're going to get a win from somebody. I understand that. Kyle, I do got to ask, you got it going 2-1?
Yeah, I do got to go in all 3, though.
Okay.
I think TL will take a game off of it, though.
All right. So now, I will be honest. I have made it very hard on myself when it comes to this upset pick. This is why I took the ballsy approach, and you went EU for your guaranteed. So I was like, I'll go.
I mean, Spice Roquette's a lot closer than expected.
Yeah, but still, when it comes to upset picks, it's a little more difficult. So despite the fact
Challenger
that what?
I was gonna say Challenger team. You gonna go that ballsy?
No, not that ballsy. Despite the fact that I do have many of these players, on my fantasy team, I am going as the upset, and it is weird to say right now, I have G2 beating Unicorns of Love as
Okay.
the upset. Unicorns of Love obviously is higher on the standings, which is why it still does equate
Yes.
as an upset. And just the way that they lost to, the way that Unicorns of Love lost to Splice in games 2 and 3 just made me go, there's something going on right now with Unicorns of Love. While I still feel they are the strongest team in EU at the moment, and I still do. If I was putting a ranking system, I'd put them at number 1. Exile has not been playing
I was
very
just
great.
gonna ask. Actually, I was
And
about to look at his stats. I was gonna ask, what
yes,
is Exile
he
currently?
has not been playing very great, and I don't think it's actually his fault. I think it's just the way that the team comp has been drafted at the moment, that they have been having Exile kind of play more of this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's not really a supportive role, but it's definitely not the carry role that he had been playing prior to it, because Vizichachi and Samix have been playing very, very well.
Oh yeah.
And Thursday, still does great in the jungle, so that's not, anything. And Hillsing is awesome in the support role. Exile is still playing decent, but it's just, it doesn't seem like they're putting him in a champions to win or to succeed on at the moment. And that's where I have to give G2 the advantage, is if Unicorns of Love continue to play Exile the way they have been playing, they're gonna struggle against G2. The one thing that will really be in Unicorns of Love's favor, however, is Expect has not been playing well in the top lane for G2, and Vizichachi, as I already said, has been playing really good for Unicorns of Love in the top lane. So I got G2 beating Unicorns of Love. I also think it's going to go a 2-1 series. So we'll see how that ends up fully shaping out, but that's a very tough pick. And so
It is, especially as you said, with Unicorns being who they've been. But G2's got to knock this rust off sometime, and this very well could beat that game.
And that's kind of what I'm going after is G2. When week 2 did not go amazing for G2, you kind of assumed, all right, it was because, Expect wasn't playing, Trick wasn't playing, and Perks got sick. It's them just having to get back to form. That's understandable. But when they play week 3, and, they still have the best of 3 against Misfits, and I did discredit Misfits, but Misfits looked really good in that, best of 3 series with G2. I'm a little like, okay, come on, G2, you got to shake off the rust. You guys do still remain the dominant team, in my opinion, when it comes to over there. So I'll be shocked if they don't shake it off this week, but at the same time, if Unicorns of Love does win, I think it's more because Unicorns of Love does finally put Exile on the champion that he is set to succeed on versus what they have been doing. But I will also say right now on the podcast, if that happens, I will be very upset because I have Exile on the bench this week. So please do not. Hey,
who's your other mid laner?
Senkux against Rokat.
Okay.
I had to go with it. I had to take that. That's the only series this week, so double points, man. Double points.
Yeah, because that's been really nice. I mean, I do have a player over in Europe currently that's been giving me over 100 points or about 100 points each of these weeks so far. Thank you, Reckless. Thank you, Fnatic, for being what you guys have been, especially you, Reckless. Even in your losses, you have dominated. So continue to do that for me. Let me win these games.
All right. I think we've had enough. So let me just recap real quick. So for those that have been following the pick'ems, we are both 3-3 right now when it comes to pick'ems. And then in the guaranteed picks, Kyle has Splice over Rokat going 2-1. I have Team Liquid over Phoenix 1, 2-1. In the upsets, Kyle has Phoenix 1 over Team Liquid, 2-1. And I have in the upset G2 over Unicorns of Love, also 2-1. Kyle, that is all that we have on this episode. I do want to take a quick second before we get through with this episode and just say thank you to all of those who continue to tune in each week when it comes to the podcast. We have had a spectacular numbers going on currently when it comes to our viewership on YouTube. Last week, we exceeded our highest viewership when it comes to the podcast with 50 viewers. And we also did have a comment, even though they didn't say anything to participate in the show. I do want to give a quick shout out to Rewind Remix for just saying that the show was amazing. So thank you for tuning in last week. Very appreciative. With that being said, you can always get involved in the show by following us on YouTube or also listening to us over on SoundCloud. So follow, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. Let us know what you think. You could also get involved on the show by following us on Twitter. You can follow me at jculver28. That is JCULV as in Victor ER28. You can also find Kyle on Twitter at,
which has changed because I did make a vote and my name. Hey, yeah, people voted. So it is at TFL Kairu. That's TFL KAIRU, which is just the spelling of cow in Japanese.
So just pay attention to that part. Say it one more time, Kyle, just to make sure they heard it.
It is TFL KAIRU.
All right, and then you can follow us on there. Tweet at us anything about the show or any questions that you would like us to address on the show, so that way you can get involved and we can help you guys, get your questions answered and make you all feel as an active participant in this episode. But for the last time on this episode, I am one of your co-hosts, Jeremy Culver, a.k.a. Darsay.
And I'm Kyle Gloria.
And be sure to tune back next week as we continue to bring you the news from the Rift.